Well, hello and welcome back to the latest edition of Coaching to Confidence. I just love the fact that we've got top real estate agents from all across North America and loan officers joining us every single week. I tell you, they're folks just like you and me that are committed to just being their very best. It's so refreshing. I'm the other Chris McGatt. I head up the coaching division right here at Leaders Edge Training, and it's such a pleasure to be able to open today's session and then be able to facilitate our weekly Q&A. Now, speaking of Q&A, every week on Coaching to Confidence, remember, we dedicate time to answer your questions. So, as Chris explores today's topic, be sure to go right ahead, do it right then and there, go into the Q&A section right there at the bottom of the screen and put your question in there, and we'll be sure to cover that at the second half of the session. And as always, we stream live to make sure that we're covering topics that are both timely and relevant to your business. And each week, we focus on one of four categories. Either it's lead generation, building your client base, sales skills to simply close more deals, inspiration to keep us all going, and your business structure. Because we all have got to figure out better ways to work smarter rather than harder. And this week, we've got a really great topic. The topic is Who Moved My Cheese? It's all about inspiration. Now, Chris is going to focus on how to deal with a changing market and how to stay ahead of the crowd when it comes to anticipating that change. That said, let's get started. Please help me welcome nationally recognized real estate expert, Chris Leader. Chris, hello. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Chris, and I am really excited to be here again. It's nice to be back in our home office. Last week we were on the road producing the show, and it's just not the same when you don't have all your stuff. I was up at sunrise this morning going through all of the latest stuff in the news and how it's going to affect us and making sure we got all our ducks in a row. So I'm happy to be back in our home studio again.
Welcome.
So before we get right into today's topic, I always like to take a moment and see what's happening in the world and how it reflects against us in the industry. I'd first like to start off by saying the news headlines have been completely absorbed with the two wars that are going on. War is horrible. I hate it. It's counterproductive to making money. It takes everybody's eye off the ball. All of that being said, so there's lots of stuff in terms of what's happening in that space that's taking up a lot of the news time. So you got to dig a little bit past it to see what's going on in the world and how it relates to real estate. But here's some stuff I was reading this morning. And again, I don't want to I don't want to say anything that would reduce the whole war thing. I think that's horrible. But at the same time, we got to get up every day and sell houses to people. That's really what we got to do in the business. So for the first time in a quarter of a century, mortgage rates touched the 8% mark in the US. Now, remember that, and you're going to say, well, that's 8% in the US. It's only 6% in Canada. And we got people on both sides of the border on with us today. But remember, whatever the Fed does, it's connected to the central bank in Canada. And of course, it makes its way back and vibrates back and forth. So it's going to affect us. You want to check, the takeaway on this is, you want to check with your mortgage professional today, the person on your team that you refer most of your mortgage work to, and you want to have a discussion on where are rates this very moment, because it's going to be in the conversation with your buyers. Can we afford to buy? How's that changing? And it's going to be in the conversation with your sellers. How's it going to, with rates rising, how's that going to affect the sale of my house? So you're going to have some talking points on that. Interesting enough, existing home sales closed last week at the lowest level since 2011. So is it a good time to buy or sell? And this is conversations going to come up over and over again with your clients. Do we wait? Do we hesitate? Do we wait till next year? Do we wait till things get better? So that's kind of what's happening in that mortgage market and the real estate market. Sales volume's down quite significantly. Now, on top of that, because we're only, what is it, 6 degrees of separation is what they say. The actor strike continues over in Hollywood. The auto strike continues. They're still looking for a 40% bump in their wages. And the tech sector has got a bunch of layoffs this morning, which is kind of interesting. So what does all this mean? All the indications that I'm hearing, and I was with a bunch of large real estate companies from around the world last week at a convention, that everybody is looking at 2024 as a potential recession. Now, some industries could argue we might already be in a recession, but the real estate industry is a lag industry, not a lead industry. So real estate doesn't really get affected until the economy gets affected. So first, let's talk recession just for a minute. And I don't know if we're going to get one or not. I'm not an economist. I'm a real estate guy. But when somebody loses their job, then of course you've got a few months of uncertainty trying to find another job. Then they come to the realization, maybe I'm going to have to sell my house. And then the house goes on the market. So, from the beginning of this exercise to the point where that property is actually sold, you could be 6 months. So if we're going to feel this in our industry, we're probably going to feel it the second quarter of next year, 2024 second quarter. So what I'm going to say to all of us is that the world is changing around us. And that brings us to today's topic. Quite honestly, there's two things I wanted to talk about: the change that's taking place in the marketplace and how to adjust your strategies. And then, of course, we're pushing up against the holiday season. So, getting ready for the holidays. So that's really the issues that I wanted to deal with today. So who moved my cheese? If you don't have a copy of this book, you need to go out and get one. The book is probably, 30, 40 years old. I've had a couple of copies on my bookshelf now for years. And every time the world starts to move, I go back and I read the book again. Now, the book, very simply in a nutshell, is it's a metaphor for the business community in the marketplace. And you have supposedly 4 characters in this book: two mice and 2 little people. And they live in this maze. The maze could be our market, for instance. These 4 people go out into the business world every day looking for business. In this analogy, it's a maze, and what they're searching for is cheese. And after they've been looking for a while, they all find a nice supply of cheese. So we have the 4 characters. We got Scurry and Scratch. We got him and Haw. These 4 characters. Now, in the book, what happens is something changes in the world, and Scurry and Scratch start to realize their supply of cheese is dwindling. And courageously, they head back out into the maze. They haven't been there for years, and they go in search of their cheese. Him and Haw stay back in the maze, waiting for the world to get back to the way it was. Finally, at a certain point, Haw realizes it's not changing. He says goodbye to him and heads off into the maze. Him stays in the maze where he was, continuing to go every day to look where the cheese was. And not only does the supply get small, it disappears. And of course, his world changes. Sounds like the world of business, doesn't it? As the world changes, the people who adapt the quickest are the ones that are able to capitalize. The ones who are slow to the party, they're the ones that feel the pain. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. So in times of change, salespeople get paralyzed, and I understand why. We get into the business under certain market conditions. We've identified where the business is, and it's taken us a while to refine the process, but we get it worked out. And we keep doing it routine and polish, and we do it over and over again, and we're really good. But then what happens is the business moves, and yet we continue to try to do business the way we were. Many agents are struggling with the current market because it's changed on them. Think about during the pandemic, people were buying homes without even seeing them. 30 and 40 people were lining up and paying over asking price. Now the world has shifted, and the salespeople that started in this market don't or haven't worked on developing the skills to move forward. This is especially true for the agents that have joined our industry in the last few years. Guys, you got to get out. You got to get out and figure out what's going on and make those changes. The changing landscape, several things are changing out there right now, and it's affecting your business. For instance, in many markets, we still have an inventory supply problem. Oh, in some cases, your market inventory is rising. You might have 60 days instead of 6, but still that is considered ultra low inventory. While that's going on, and that kind of holds the house prices up, interest rates have been rising. So it makes it more difficult for people to buy houses. And then we have persistent inflation in the conversation with the price of goods, the price of fuel, the price of cars. Housing affordability is everybody's question. And I don't think you have to go too far to find a parent who's concerned about the likelihood of their 20-year-olds being able to buy a house in the future. Everybody says this generation won't be able to afford houses. So, of course, all of this plays into the media and plays into our psyche. While all this is going on, there are lawsuits taking place in our industry about not being able to talk to strangers in terms of cold calling. And then, of course, our commission lawsuit that's taking place as well, and is going to affect how we approach the buyer side of the transaction. This is an unusual amount of change all at the same time. So I can understand why agents feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not even quite sure how to proceed. Now, what I will tell you this, in life, there are really typically two motivators, pain and pleasure. What we typically don't change until the pain of not making a change is so much that we just have to do it. Now, if you don't make that change and you don't make it soon, you miss out on the opportunities. Let me give you a quick example. I was talking to an agent from Florida, and she was telling me, this was last week, she was telling me that when we went into the recession of 2008, she initially got introduced to the idea of short sales by a California agent. Nobody in Florida had picked up on this yet. She started on it. All the other agents were used to doing business like it was 2007. They were kind of gobsmacked with the change of the market, but they hadn't changed yet, and they were refusing to work in the power of sales space. I'm sorry, not power of sales space, the short sales space. So she went immediately into that piece of the business, and she became the expert. By the time the rest of the world caught up, she had already cornered the market in her community on that type of business. So what I'm saying to you is you really need to see the changes and try to come up with strategies and adopt sooner than the competition. Let me tell you something else that I've learned. If you don't make the decisions, the world's going to make them for you. So you're better off to figure out how to proceed. Now, fear of the unknown. Emotions and past experiences often cloud our decisions. We've done things in the past that didn't work out, so now that something has changed in the marketplace, we're often too nervous to make that leap, that taking that giant leap, because we've done it before and it didn't work. So these feelings we harbor hold us back. Don't worry about the outcome. Worry about the next step in the process. So let me give you an example. You need to get listings. But some of you are so worried about the appointment you don't have. You're getting organized for all of the marketing conversations you think you might have to have with somebody to prove the reason why they should hire you. You're spending time on stuff that hasn't happened yet, getting ready for an appointment you haven't booked. Let me make it really simple for you. This week, you need to find somebody that needs to sell a house. And when you do that, you'll work out the appointment when you get there. And it won't be the appointment that you wanted, but you'll continue to refine the process and move it forward. Listen, even if it's not perfect, but it's signed, it's better than waiting for it to be perfect with an unsigned listing. So you need to get out there and make it happen. Don't worry about the outcome, worry about the next step. And how do you do this? You're going to need to have powerful goals to inspire you to make the changes in your business every day that are necessary. Goals are really important. You've got to have a purpose, a why. And when the why is powerful, you're going to push yourself into those uncomfortable activities, which are just strategies that we haven't experienced yet or mastered yet. Now, visualizing what you want, that law of attraction, when you look at something long enough, it will really, you're going to create it, you're going to make it happen. So I'm going to say to you that envision yourself in realistic detail of the thing that you want to accomplish. And in the process, you're going to come up with the activities and the strategies that are going to make that happen. When life changes, think about what you could gain instead of what you could lose by getting out of your comfort zone and participating in activities that you're not presently doing. Now, what are you waiting for? Your biggest inhibitor, the biggest challenge that you face to your success is you. We have this voice in our head that continually talks to us out of the things we should be doing, like knocking on that FSBO's door or following up in a timely manner after your open house on the past weekend, whatever it is. You know, I don't want to intrude on somebody's time. You get paid to politely interrupt people's days. So you need to understand, as a sales professional, this is what we do. Do it politely, but you got to ask people, do you want to sell your house? Understand what your goal is, and then attach what you've got to get done this week. You got to get a listing this week, guys. So get out of your way and stop preparing for an opportunity you don't have. Let's get after it, and let's get out there and book those appointments. And you're going to need more than one. so that you don't become emotionally completely 100% tied to the outcome of one opportunity. You got to know that some will, some won't, some do, some don't. Somebody's going to think your house is worth more. Somebody's not going to want to pay your fees, but somebody else is going to be perfect. So you got to book more than one appointment so that when something doesn't happen, it's not emotionally debilitating. Don't let your fear keep you from changing. And yes, it's uncomfortable to change. Get out of your head, see what I'm talking to you about, and understand it's normal to feel this way. Change happens, and there's no way to stop this. And the problem with us is we get connected to one thing that works. We keep doing that one thing. And then as the results start to reduce, we get frustrated and we don't understand why. It's because the world's changing and you have to change along with it. What I need you to do is anticipate that it's going to change. If you think it's going to stay the same, it's just going to continue to shrink, is what's going to happen. It's not. It's not going to stay the same. You got to adapt quickly to the changes. That's why it's so important to stay up with your current events. Think about what's going on in the business world. Think about what could be happening next year or the end of this year, and adjust your everyday strategies, boots on the ground, to make sure that you're one of the few people who can take advantage of the opportunity, not be paralyzed by it. Be ready to make that change and be ready to make it again. This, I know, is hard, but it's probably one of the most exciting features about being in the real estate business. Look at it this way: you should never be bored. Now, anticipating change. If you spot the changes early, and this has to do with your insight and staying connected and up to date, you have the best chance to maximize the opportunities that are going to be available. Like the agent in Florida that capitalized on the short sale market because nobody else wanted to in the beginning. So where do you get up to date? People ask me, Chris, you're dialed in. How do you get dialed in? Well, I read trade magazines. This morning, I read all the up-to-date Inman articles, Riz Media, and REM in Canada. I read all of that. Oh, and mortgage broker news this morning as well. I read the financial papers. I read the New York Times this morning. I read the National Post, and I was on the Fox website. You need to be involved in all of these areas to stay up to date. I also read the Brew newsletter and the Brew Tech newsletter every morning. Now, you want to go to your office meetings, and you want to, and you know, it's interesting. People go to get together with other real estate professionals and they want to tell people what they think. Listen, you already know what you think. So you don't need to tell anybody what you think. You need to know what they think. You're going to learn more if you don't talk. If you're talking, you're not learning. So the reason to go to the office meeting is learn, not to forecast your opinion upon people. Find out what they're thinking and how you might take some of that information and adjust your strategies. Board training. Who else is there? Other real estate professionals. Local business groups, BNI, Chamber of Commerce, town council meetings, builders associations. You need to be part of all of this, and you got to have your radar up. You got to be listening to what's going on in the world. And if the market pivots, you're going to be in the best position to pivot because you are up to date. Now, when the market speeds up, and like the market we just left, what happens is houses sell quickly. So you got to be really spot on with an aggressive pricing strategies. Be prepared and your clients for multiple offers. Be prepared to have that conversation about commissions and what you do for a living. For sale by owners will become more prominent, and you can do it, and because they're going to adopt the position they feel they can save the money and do as well as we can. Now, if the market slows down, and you're going to know your market, I don't. I mean, markets it's a kind of a micro situation, not necessarily always macro. Now, you're going to have to get good at price reductions or price repositioning or price improvements, whatever you want to call them, but you're going to have to make the properties more attractively priced. You're going to have to get better at prospecting expired listings. You can't do it in Canada because there's privacy legislation against that, but you can do it in the US. That doesn't mean in Canada you're still not going to bump into somebody who had their home on the market and wasn't successful. So you need to be prepared with your communication in any side of the border in terms of strategy, dealing with both sellers, and you got to be able to deal with those sellers for a longer period of time. So it means like you might have a home on the market and sell it successfully, but it could take you 5 months. Now that means you're going to have to navigate that relationship for 5 months, keep people up to speed and let them know that you're working all the time. These are the skills of a real estate professional. Now, keep your eye on the lawsuit in terms of cold calling. How is this going to affect us? A lot of people are going to say this is negative because this is one of their best lead sources, being able to pick up the phone and talk to strangers. On the other hand, I see the positive opportunity. I don't see the negative. I see the positive because everyone's going to need to build better relationships based on permission-based marketing and have to raise the quality of their marketing materials because people don't want emails that don't have any value. They don't want print material that they don't get any value for. So we're going to have to deliver a better experience. This is only going to make us better in the business. Now, the buyer commission lawsuit, people see the negative with this. As a buyer's agent, my commission is now less certain. All right. Now, the pros in the business see the positive. I'm going to get my BRA signed before I head out with buyers. I'm going to build a buyer presentation that builds value on why somebody would want to enter into an exclusive relationship with me. So the good part of this is you're going to be with people that are qualified and they are committed. And how long in our business have we spent time taking people out who weren't qualified and weren't committed and then were disappointed when we didn't get the results we were hoping for? We're going to be able to actually contract those relationships. So I challenge you to be even better at this stuff so that your buyers are under contract and having a good understanding, depending on what side of the border you're on, how you're going to communicate agency to people so that they understand it. Now, interest rates and real-time challenges. So people see the negatives. They won't be able to, agents are complaining the rates have gone up. People can't afford to buy. People can't afford to sell because they don't want to give up their good rate. Really pros in our business understand that buying a home is emotional. It's not always logical. And what you want to do is you want to be able to get people excited about what they're buying and then justify it in terms of affordability. At the end of the day, if we have a recession, supply is going to be better. The sellers are going to be easier to negotiate with. And you know what? Even if we have a recession, and even if unemployment rate went from 5% to 10%, which I don't see happening, that still means 90% of the people have got a job. The question is, do you see the glass half empty or do you see it half full? There's always an opportunity, but not if you got stinking thinking. Now, that was sort of my who moved the cheese thing. And I wanted to talk very briefly about some of the next set of challenges that we're going to see coming up. And that's going to be getting your listings ready for the holidays and getting your buyers and sellers ready. Now, in terms of the right mindset, you want to help sellers make the right decision now in terms of the timing. And it's not going to be unusual for them to want to hit the pause button until next year. Now, if this happens, well, let me say it this way. First of all, if you go out and get listings right now, you're going to finish strong. Secondly, for the listings that don't sell over the holiday season, it's going to keep your pipeline full and get you off to a good start next year. So as a practitioner, these are the things you need to be doing. We need to develop strategies so that we can avoid the we want to wait conversation and be able to navigate that successfully. So if somebody wants to wait till after the holidays, you're going to need some talk tracks. So let me bring this up to your attention. So there will be less competition during the holidays. So think about it this way. When there's lots of inventory on the market, the buying public has a choice. The sellers have to be more flexible. But during the holiday season, if everybody takes their home off the market until January, then I think it's pretty fair to say that the folks that do have their homes on the market are, number one, they're serious, and the people who are coming to look at their homes are serious. There'll be less property, so their home will stand out. This is going to bring them to the top of the list and be a better situation for them. Now, motivated buyers, as you know, during the holiday season, everybody's busy. And if someone was willing to take time from their holidays to go out and look at houses, this isn't something they're interested in. This is something they're committed to doing. This is a better quality buyer. So not only will you'll have less traffic, you can tell the sellers, but the quality of the traffic is going to be better. And you're going to find that these people are more serious. Now, in January, it's fair to say that when somebody puts their home on the market, the middle of end of January, so does everybody else who was holding off over the holidays, and there will be a lot more competition. So the timing is perfect right now. If a person has the affordability to make the move, then I'd recommend that they seriously think about it. Now, sensitive to negotiations. You're going to find that during the holidays, people are in just a much better mood. So after the holidays, and I always make comedy about this, but your typical visa bill comes in about January 21st. And people look at their visa bill and they think, oh my gosh, I spent way more than I thought. How do you think that sits in their subconscious or conscious mind when an offer comes in on their property or they go to buy a property? Even though that they still have the budget and the ability, they know that maybe they spent a little bit more. So it's normal for us to pull back as a consumer from one area or another to help offset some of the feelings we had about the overspending. So I'm just telling you, the negotiations get more complicated in January than they do during the holidays. Simply put, everybody's in a good mood during the holidays, and that makes the negotiations just that much easier. Now, the homes look really great during the holidays. Sometimes people say, "Well, my home's a mess," and I say, "Well, it's a happy mess. We got half decorated trees, we got half wrapped presents, we got cookies and parties and all of that stuff." It really, people look at a house during the season and they really get a sense. You know what? I could see us hosting our holiday season here in this property. It's a perfect time to showcase a house. It's when family really, the whole family experience and the whole holiday experience makes its way to the surface. And you may say, well, my clients have a very busy schedule. It's just not going to work. They have people in and dinner parties and so on. And I'd say, well, everybody's got a busy schedule. The good news is the buyers will be very flexible and they will book around your schedule. Let's not miss an opportunity to get a premium price and then be disappointed in January because we waited. So, Chris, this brings us up to our homework for the week. And it was a full session, lots to think about in this session. Everything from changes in the marketplace, preparing for 2024, getting ready for the opportunities that are in front of us right now, being aware of interest rates, inventory levels. Like, here's something else that was quite interesting I read this morning. We still have a bit of an inventory shortage in a lot of different places, even though the days on the market's rising. And the builders are not building now, and they haven't been now for the last 24 months. We have another 24 months of this. The interesting thing is the baby boomer generation is coming to the end, and the Gen Z generation is about to come into the buying market. There are 90 million of them. There are actually 20 million more of them than there are of the baby boomers. And they're going to want houses in the next few years. And if the builders aren't building now, we are sure not going to have supply when they start to enter the market. So here's another part of the equation. When supply is low, it holds the price up, and especially when demand is there. So, it's really an interesting time. I challenge all of you guys to start doing some reading about the market conditions, the supply of inventory, the interest rates, the global economy. All of this is going to affect us in the real estate business. So that being said, Chris, I got a homework assignment for them. The homework assignment I have for them this week is that it's a perfect time to do some drop-bys in their farm, in their sphere. Say hello to everybody. Ask them if they know of anybody who's thinking of buying or selling, and drop off one of those pre-printed Halloween bags for the kids that they'll be able to use at the grocery store after Halloween's over. And of course, you'd have your bags all over town. So this is a great opportunity. We still have enough time if you want to get that order. All right. So, did you enjoy today's session? Is our poll today? Take a minute and let us know if you enjoyed the content, and again, make it bring to the attention of other real estate professionals in your career. And when you're ready to rev up your career and take it to the next level, and maybe even in these challenging times, it would be just the thing you need is to have an experienced coach help you navigate a strong finish and a strong start to next year. We got some great coaches. I mean, literally the best in the best. They all have over 15 years experience. It would be like hiring your own business manager. Reach out to our office and get the details. Now, that brings us up to questions, Chris. And anything you want to take off on this, we're good.
Excellent. Well, Chris, first of all, thank you. Wow. Today was jam-packed full of really great content. So thank you for the extra hard work on that. It's all spot on, right? That's the thing. It's, there's so much information is coming at us right now, but I love the homework assignment. Like, reconnect with the people that are going to give you business. Get out, love those pop-bys, get out there, make sure you're connecting with the people that know you, that like you, that trust you. Anyway, don't miss that opportunity. Well, this is the section where we hear from you. We get your questions. So thank you for that. And they are rolling in, Chris, as you can probably imagine. Let's do this. And by the way, if you haven't thrown a question in yet, please throw it in. Now is the time to do it. Every question matters. If we don't get to your question, don't be alarmed, don't be offended. We'll make sure that one of the coaches or Chris or myself gets back to you personally to make sure you got the information. So listen, let's start out here with Greg. And let me first just preface this, Chris, because I love this question. Change is hard. Greg says change is hard. I don't like change. I like it when things stay consistent. I like it when things stay the same. Do you have any suggestions in coping with change strategies? And, this is a kind of vulnerability that I think if we can exhibit sort of the openness, the honesty about this business, we all can get better and we can help navigate sometimes some challenging times. So, Chris, what's your thought on that? Coping strategies.
Well, the first thing I would say to you is that I think that when we don't pay attention and we think we've been surprised by something, it really creates a feeling of uncertainty and very unsettled. So, one of the things I would say is that in terms of change, if you can start to do your homework, and I talked about this in the session, and start to read about what's happening, even though you can see the change coming and you maybe not be excited about it, because you make the decision and somebody else doesn't, it gives you a sense of control. I've analyzed the whole situation. This is what I think I need to do, and I'm prepared to do it, and I'm going to get behind it. Okay, it's your decision. So that's one part of it. In terms of actual strategy, I've always found for me, I needed to figure out something, especially in and I don't want to use the word tough times, but in changing times. I needed to attach myself to a goal that was important, because now I needed to create a list of actionable items that were going to be required in this changing market. And some of those actionable items I'm not comfortable with, I've not done, or haven't done in a long time. Going back to that seems, I don't know. So if what I want is more important than what I have to do, then I'm going to start to create those strategies. The next thing I would do with my strategies is, once I figure out what this looks like, instead of just kind of talking about it or writing it down on a notepad, I need to build them into my calendar. And the only way we get good at something is by pushing ourselves through the exercise of trying to go out and attempt that new strategy, that new prospecting, new conversation that you're having, that new talk track, whatever it is. Maybe you haven't worked on expireds for a long, long time, or maybe you've given up on your farm, and you haven't done that business for a long time. So what we want to do is go back to that stuff, or start to build in the actionable items. And then what I want you to do is not worry so much about where will you be at the end of the week, but more so, where will you be by lunchtime today? What are you going to get done by lunch? What are you going to get done by 5 o'clock? And if you can do those little, small, micro things, that micro action, and you can get in the habit of doing that micro action every day and holding yourself, being aware of it and holding yourself to it, then you'll be surprised how much ground you've covered by the end of the week. And all of a sudden, opportunities will start to blossom in front of you, and those will lead you to more opportunities. It's the agent that's paralyzed that keeps doing what they were doing and getting frustrated about it and telling everybody what they were doing isn't working anymore, and I'm really upset about this real estate market. That's not going to resolve the issue. Listen, and I don't want to sound, this is what I do in times of uncertainty. I have a prayer that I say to myself in my head. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference. Listen, no matter how hard you think about it, you can't change the interest rates, but you can change how you react to the interest rates. You may say there's no inventory or there's more inventory. You can't change that piece of it in terms of a macro situation, but you can certainly change the micro side of going out and getting another really great listing in a great neighborhood. Finding somebody that isn't affected by the economy and is willing to make a move because right now the timing is perfect. Somebody is getting divorced. Somebody is got a job promotion. The kids have moved out and it doesn't matter. This is when they're downsizing. Your job is to go out and find them, Chris. And if you can put those micro steps into place, readjust your focus, the opportunities will always be there.
You got First of all, thank you for being so actionable on that question. That was a great answer. And it actually prompted three questions that popped up, or statements, I should say, which was, oh my gosh, I can't take notes fast enough. Don't worry, because this is recorded. So you have an entire week to be able to go back through and listen to it more carefully to make sure you don't miss a step. And then also, Greg, I just want to say thank you for being so candid. That was a question that, quite frankly, I think many of us were asking in our minds, and you had the courage to just throw it out there. And that's what this forum is really all about. Chris, next question comes in from Frank, and Frank from Philly says, mortgage rates today make it almost impossible for my buyers to buy a house. Do you think they're going to go much higher? This is a little more on the speculation side of things.
If I knew that, my gosh, I'd be, as Chris said earlier this morning in another call, I'd be on a beach in a lawn chair just drinking margaritas for the rest of my life, right? But I think that we got another quarter point bump before the year's over. If anything, maybe another quarter in the beginning of the first quarter of next year. We could be about 8.25 in the US at some point, and maybe 6.5 in Canada. But then what's going to happen, in my opinion, and again, this is way beyond the scope of what I would consider myself as a subject matter expert on. I'm not an economist. Typically, what we're trying to do is get this inflation under control, and that means we got to put some people out of work so that they become very price sensitive and they start consuming less. We consume less, then the manufacturers and people who make all that stuff got to sell it for a little bit less, and maybe we can hold the prices down, bring the prices down a little bit. So really, this is all fancy jargon for code. What we really need is a bit of a recession, not a big recession, just a little recession, a little retreat and stuff. When that happens, then the government's position is, oh my goodness, we don't want a whole bunch of people losing houses and losing businesses. We're going to have to make the rates better now, and then the rates will start to come down. I did read this morning, though, there were some economists who said, yes, they expect by probably mid-2024, we'll start to see rates coming back down again, but they don't think they'll ever see the lows that we saw when we were under 3%. So my suggestion is, and it's always been kind of an old school rule of thumb, you get a mortgage under 5%, it's a deal. And, we just got kind of really spoiled with those crazy rates at under 3%. So what do I think? I think that we're going to see rates come down a little bit again, but it won't be until the middle of next year. And there will be some deals. Some people are going to have to dump some real estate. There will be, the negotiations will be a little bit easier. And in the Canadian market, since they don't have a 25 or 30 year fixed term mortgage, their mortgages come up every 3 to 5 years for renegotiating. You're going to get some people who bought houses, say at 3% mortgages. That mortgage rate's over 6 now. When that rate comes up, they're going to double. They're going to have to sell some of these houses. Add to that the price of gas, and the commuting part gets complicated because it bites into the household income. I'm getting little flashcards here on the margin saying there's a ton of questions here, Chris. So stop talking so much and answer some more of the questions.
Well, listen, these are hot, real topics, right? And I can't help but mention something you actually reminded me of not so long ago. And you said that when the market gets where it is right now, buyers have a chance to actually buy. You're not competing at the level you were a year ago. You're not overpaying potentially like we were over a year ago. And now you can acquire a property a little more calmly. And then with the rates come down, you can always refi down the road, but you can never reprice the house. So good advice. But yes, the comments are correct. Let's try and buzz through a few of these just to lighten up the log jam a little bit. Chris, do you have scripts that you can suggest? This is Monique. Thank you, Monique.
Do I have scripts? Yes. Generally, our scripts are located in two places. Our scripts are located in our virtual training system, which can be found on our website. A very affordable 16-week training program done on video. And then, of course, I have scripts that are recorded in audio for our 6-week leaders program. But Monique, if I could be help on a specific one that you're struggling with, you're welcome to write that in for one of the upcoming sessions, or send us an email, and I'd be happy to help you with that.
Excellent. Thank you. John asks, should I buy first or sell first, and why? Like, this is maybe more of a generic question, maybe on counseling consumers, I'm guessing.
So if you're working with your clients, John, you'll always find that your client, if they have to sell a house and buy a house, if they don't put their home on the market and they go out to look at houses, their wants list is really long and they have really high expectations. Your clients become more, what's the word I'm looking for? Flexible, more pragmatic maybe. After they've sold their house, their wants list will shrink a little bit, and you'll find them to be a little more flexible in the negotiations of the purchase of the next property. Now, so what we want to do is we want to make sure they get best possible price. That's going to happen by having their home on the market. And then we'd really like to do a rent back or enough time to be able to go into the marketplace, find the property they want, be pre-qualified, and have a commitment from the lender so that we could go basically in and negotiate what would be perceived as a cash offer on the other side. And that's the best way. So I always like it when my sellers have already decided the offer I got is so great, we just can't turn it down. Now let's go find the house we've always wanted.
Excellent. Okay, this is Karen. Karen says, Chris, I need your advice. My neighbor is putting their house on the market with a realtor from their local social group. I've had a great relationship for 25 years. I'm wondering if I still have a chance.
I think you do until the sign goes up and the listing is signed. And it depends on how hard, Karen, you want to fight for every inch of this opportunity. So, pride can be the burden of a foolish person. So often we let our pride say, you know what, I don't want to feel like I'm begging. I don't want to feel like I'm coming off as being desperate. I don't want to sound like that pushy salesperson. So find an elegant way to bring to their attention nobody would be better qualified than somebody who lives in the neighborhood, understands the value of living in this neighborhood. Because it's not just a house people buy, it's where they're going to buy, the area. And the fact that you're so close, being right next door, you would be always available in a moment's notice to show the property. Using your QR code, for instance, on your for sale sign, we can drive traffic that you can capture right away, and you can jump into that opportunity where if somebody's living outside the area or in a distance, it wouldn't have that same flexibility. And I would say to them, when it's making a decision, I appreciate the fact that you're looking at me as your neighbor and a longtime friend, somebody else in your social network. What I want you to do is take off your personal hat and put on your business hat. The decision you're about to make should be based on Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what's best for you, not what's best for your friends. What I challenge you to do is put the two of us side by side and measure everything we're doing to determine where you're going to get the best value for your money. And if I'm literally the best agent, I think then you should give me the opportunity. And if the friend from your social network is literally the best agent, you should give it to them. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't give it to them because you're friends. Let me put it to you another way. If you had to have open heart surgery and your friend was a cardiologist and there was a world-class surgeon that was exceptional, would you put your life in the hands of your friend or the world-class cardiologist?
Great example.
Not to say your friend isn't nice, they're nice, but you know what? When it comes to selling the biggest asset you own, I love you, honey, but I got to go with the person that's going to get the job done. So that would be my suggestion.
I love it. Be the professional, go with the professional. There you go. A couple of just quick comments. Elizabeth says, we refer to those rates as COVID rates, unprecedented. And Elizabeth, you're spot on. Like, if any of us think the rates are getting back down to 3, 2.8, 2.7, we may be waiting a long, long time. And Chris, you said it. When rates get below 5%, it'll be a gift from the universe. Take advantage of them. Do not delay. Kim says, if it isn't in my calendar, I don't get to it. You have to block time. It's the only way you can do it. So Kim, thank you. That's a sage comment as well. And Chris has a comment saying, thank you for your suggestion for the micro actions. Okay, Kathy says, what would you consider to be the top 3 places I can go to get real estate information that would help me with conversations with potential clients, i.e. Inman, other sources?
So I would now you got to think real estate generally for most people is a bit of a dry topic. So one of the things I will give Inman credit for, they can take a dry topic and they can set it on fire. So so I want you to be able to, when you read the Inman articles, you got to understand to get people to keep going back to read real estate articles. They got them pretty splashy, almost National Enquirer type headlines. But the idea is to get you to read it. So I read Inman, and I probably get 4 or 5 Inman feeds a day they send me. I read REM in Canada, Mortgage Broker News. The Brew in the morning gives me my global current events. The Brew, it's a little newsletter. It's called The Brew, and there's a Tech Brew that I read as well. On top of that, I read the New York Times probably 3 times a day, and the National Post in Canada a couple of times a day to see what changing stories are changing. So that would be my go-tos on most of my stuff. And if I thought about it, there's probably other newsletters as well. But Inman in the US, REM in Canada, and then anything else that you can add in there.
Excellent. Elizabeth, I love you. She says, just listen to Chris. He gives the best talking points. And you know what? I have to agree. If you want to make your life easy, just like dial in every Monday at noon Eastern time. And Chris will spend about 7-8 minutes going through all the latest news and how it relates to what we're doing. That is one of the reasons why you're here. So take full advantage of that. Let Chris do the heavy lifting for you. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you doing that. Okay. Let's see here. John says, I'm still able to get the section on farming on Monday, October the 9th. I don't know what that means. Does that ring a bell? Chris, something about a farming. Can I get the section on farming on Monday, October the 9th? Oh,
Sorry,
last
Chris.
week's. Can I get last week's? No,
the
sorry.
Sessions are only up for
There's
1
new
week.
good stuff coming though. That's
Yeah.
exactly
So I
right.
apologize,
Okay.
John. We keep those sessions live for 1 week. Otherwise, the current content piece, even when I start with the news, wouldn't be relevant. So I got to get you guys to get in the habit of listening to me once a week. If you
That's
can't
right.
make Mondays, then get on it before the week's over. So, sorry, John.
Great point. Okay, Chris, Trudy says some sellers seem to think they can still name their price in this market. Buyers are not willing or even able to overpay in these challenging times. Any advice on how to handle correct pricing and price improvements discussions with sellers? Can you cover this in the future as maybe a future session?
We can. And I'll add a little bit quickly to that conversation today. First of all, when a buyer buys a house, they, in 99 times out of 100, will need a mortgage. The house will either sell for the appraised value or the mortgage value, or the appraised value or the purchase price, whatever's the lesser of the two. So if you're at crossroads with a client and they just will not look at your research material, bring this to their attention and let them know that if they list the house at the appraised value, you'll cover the cost of the appraisal. If they're not willing to list it at the appraised value, then that expense is on them. At the end of the day, you can only sell it for one of the two. That's one strategy. Second, before I do that though, I would lay out a really well done evaluation, properties that are presently for sale, ones that have sold, ones that are in direct comparison, and anything that's expired. And I would put that out in a table so that the average person who doesn't spend their days searching data sheets would be able to do a comparison. And what I do with that table is lay it out and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's take a look at what homes like yours have been selling for and what other people are asking. Let's figure out the sweet spot from a position perspective. If we overprice it, we make everybody's more attractive. If we underprice it, we leave potential money on the table. Where do you think your home needs to be? So when they overprice it, Chris, then what I do is I look at the 2 or 3 properties that are on the market that are just south of theirs, and I say, well, let's investigate these. We zero in on that even more. And then I'm hoping through common sense and some clarity, they move their property into the right spot. Instead of me saying, this is what your home is worth, they're like, I think we need to put it here. What do you think, salesperson? To which I say, you know what? That's exactly where I thought it should be. Spot on with that. So and we could do something in the future on pricing in a more detailed way, but that'll give you a little bit of food for thought this week if you're running into that issue.
Excellent. Okay, so Kevin, thank you, Kevin, for your question, asks, I know you say that goals are important motivators. And I've set goals in the past. Like I set a goal for a house, I set a goal for a new car, and I've accomplished those. But I'm wondering now, as I'm maturing in my career, what are some more actionable goals you'd recommend?
It's interesting, Kevin. I think that first of all, I'd like to compliment you on your success. I think that many people on the seminar today would love to be in a position where they've got the house they want, they got the car they want. Maybe they got a little bit of security in the bank now, and they're building up their 401k or their RSP. Maybe they got an investment property. These are all really good strategies. If this isn't you and you're on the video conference with us today, then you got to think about priorities: house, car for work, money for retirement, investments. These should be all part of that goal setting exercise that you go through with the people that are close to you, your partners and your husbands and wives and stuff. But if you've done all of that and you're in a really good financial spot, I say bravo, bravo. But then we have a responsibility. And my suggestion is the next step here is to find somebody that you really like in the industry who's committed but struggling. And the best thing you could do is help somebody else become successful. Now, you got to pass it, you got to pay it forward, you got to pass it along. And I will tell you this: it's awful exciting to get up every day with the intent of trying to help somebody else in the world have a better life. And the skills that maybe you've not thought about for a long time that have achieved the outcome that you've got, or the things you're going to have to do in what somebody might have to do in 2024 that you just don't have the same appetite you had when you were younger. This is a great way to find that appetite, and it's a great way to find that thirst for being successful by living vicariously through some of the other people. Today, I have many agents that I've trained that are wildly successful. They could buy or sell me in terms of the amount of money they've made, but nothing lightens my heart more to know that I remembered where they started, and I saw them take the training materials that I had and went out and apply them into the universe. And today they live in fabulous houses, they drive great cars, and they run great businesses. I can't tell you how much pride that you have as a human being when you help other people. So if you happen to be that successful and your house is paid for, you've got the car you want, you've got a couple of retirement or investment properties, and your retirement fund is topped up, then go out and help somebody else have a wonderful life. And if these are not where you are, then let's create that priority list. And I would also say you need to talk to a financial planner, somebody who can be your sounding board, talk strategy, and start building those investments so that when you get to be my age, you're going to go to work every day because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah, very thoughtful. Thank you, Chris. That's spot on. And I think, in many cases, the fact that you're on this call today, people on this call today, says that you care and you want to do more, you want to do better, you want to make better use of your time. And never underestimate the opportunity of grabbing a colleague from within your office or another office and having them jump on this call with you and use it as an accountability tool. Because Chris always lays out very specific action steps every single week to improve your business. And sometimes it's converting those steps, Chris, that you offer up into actual action. We've got time for probably one or maybe two questions left. I'm going to grab this one here, Chris. It actually talks about prospecting. She says, please tell me more about FSBOs. Where can I find them? What restrictions are there, which will probably vary between marketplaces. Thank you for hosting these sessions.
Okay, so thanks. Let's start with restrictions. It doesn't matter if they are telling the world their home is for sale. If they're on the do not call list, you can't call them. And I know that seems so ridiculous. Here, I want to sell my house, but you can't call me. It's a little weird, but it's the law and we have to be compliant. So what I'm going to say to you is go over and knock on their door. If they're not home, take a little handwritten note and say, I have an important real estate matter I'd like to discuss with you. If I had a buyer, would you sell your home to my clients? Something along those lines. Don't have to talk about fees and marketing at this point. All we want to do is have a meeting with them and have a sit down. So that's the first thing. Make sure you're compliant. Okay. Under no circumstances break the law. Second thing I would say to you, and this is you're going to find this surprising, I would Google for sale by owners in your town. And you're going to be shocked with the number of properties that are around you that you didn't even know were available. Number one. Don't be surprised if some of those properties present as for sale by owners, but with a little more research, you find out some, not all, they're already listed with a real estate agent. So don't be shocked by that, because I don't know what the agent's doing by pretending they're not listed, but then they are listed. So, but anyways, you'll discover that as you go along. Then don't be surprised to go to places like Zillow, where they put for sale by owners on that website, okay, on their website. You can go there and look. The other interesting thing about this market, and I wanted to mention this as well, Chris, is I think we'll see the iBuyer program in many of these companies go away under these new market conditions. So that's one less person to have to worry about their buying up your properties privately and leaving us out of the exercise. So the iBuyers are probably going to disappear now under these market conditions, and good riddance with them. Let's get rid of those. But in terms of FSBOs, let's Google it. Let's go to the FSBO websites. Let's go to Facebook Marketplace. Let's go to any place that's got like some sort of private seller space, and then go. If they're on the do not call list, don't call them. If they're not on the do not call list, call them. And then if not, go to their door, ring their doorbell, introduce themselves. Do not book an appointment to go in. Book an appointment to come back. Book an appointment to come back when you got all your pieces in, or you got everything organized so that you're in a good spot. Remember, if you walk in and they're going to ask you, what do you think my home is worth? If you don't have your CMA material with you, it becomes a matter of opinion, not a matter of fact. And that's where the dispute begins. So when you say, I need to do some research so that I can be absolutely accurate, I have a good idea, but I want to be accurate. So I want to do some research. And so do not go into the property until you have an actual time booked on the calendar so you have their undivided attention.
Excellent. Chris, well, I think that brings us to the wrap up here. Thank you again for the sage advice, the great ideas. I'm guessing this will be a session that many people will take the time to watch the video, because there's a lot of really good information packed into today's program. So thank you very much. Well, folks, I would say it's a wrap for today's session. Obviously, I want to thank Chris Leder for sharing his expert advice and his perspective as always. And listen, a really big thank you to each one of you that has taken the time out of your busy schedule to join us and be a part of this process. Now, speaking of your very best, if you're in search of a high quality, super customized, that real one-on-one coaching and support experience, be sure to reach out to Melanie Forrest. She heads up that program for us, and she's amazing. Just go to the coachingtoconfidence.com website right at the bottom. Contact us. We'll give you all the information. And if you found today's session helpful, please spread the word. We love getting people that are committed to their best joining us every day. Well, until next week, folks, stay focused, stay disciplined, and stay committed to ensure that your best years are your next years. Thank you again for joining us.